Caliban Guzman adjusted his grip on the controls, his cybernetic fingers tapping impatiently against the dashboard. The armored truck growled like a caged beast, its engine's deep rumble vibrating through the valley. Behind him, the dragons hissed and snarled, unsettled by the machine's unnatural presence. "Get in! Find a spot or something." His voice was calm, but there was no room for argument. The four women hesitated, wide-eyed and trembling. The smallest among them, a dark-haired elf, opened her mouth to protest. But we... I said get in." His tone cut through the air like a blade. Even the dragons went silent. The women scrambled into the back, nearly tripping over each other as they squeezed into the seats, surrounded by juvenile drakes. The beasts shifted, their reptilian eyes locking onto the new passengers. The air inside was thick with tension, the scent of oil and steel mixing with the faint musk of dragon hide. Caliban sighed, muttering under his breath. "Could have been a king. Could have been a legend. Hell, could have stayed home and figured out how to pay my taxes. But no, I'm here." The truck lurched forward, its massive tires crushing the dirt path beneath them as it powered through the valley. The world outside blurred past, towering cliffs, dense forests, the occasional silhouette of winged creatures circling above. The women sat stiffly, gripping whatever they could as the machine rumbled through the uneven terrain. The elf finally found her voice. What are you?" Caliban didn't answer immediately. He adjusted a dial on the console, his mechanical arm whirring slightly as it moved. "Human?" he said at last. "Last I checked. But your arm? Cybernetics. You got magic, I got machines. We all make do." The truck slowed as it approached a sheer cliff. Caliban exhaled sharply, gripping the wheel. "All right, you featherless chickens, this is your stop." The dragons outside hesitated at the edge, their talons scraping against the rock as they exchanged nervous glances. Caliban reached over and flipped a switch. A deafening mechanical horn blared from the front of the vehicle, the sound echoing through the valley like an air raid siren. The effect was immediate. The dragons screeched, their instincts overriding their fear as they leaped from the cliff's edge. Wings snapped open, catching the wind just before they could plummet. Caliban let out a sharp laugh. "Works every time." The women, still huddled together, stared in a mixture of shock and disbelief. What is this place?" one of them whispered. Caliban didn't bother answering. The truck roared back to life, turning away from the cliff and heading toward the mountain pass. The massive steel gates in the distance loomed closer, their towering forms marked with deep, ancient symbols. Beyond them, the heart of his domain waited, a fortress of industry, a factory of war in a world that had never seen such machines. The truck rumbled through the colossal steel gates, which groaned as they swung open. The four women sat frozen, gripping the edges of their seats as they stared out in disbelief. Inside the crater, towers of metal stretched toward the sky. Black smoke curled from chimneys, and gears the size of houses spun endlessly. The ground trembled under the pounding of machinery, and in the distance, mechanical constructs stomped through the industrial labyrinth. Golems, but made of steel, not stone. "What is this place?" one of them whispered. "My house," Caliban said, stepping out and slamming the truck door shut. "Get out!" The women hesitated. "I said get out!" The command snapped them into motion, and they scrambled onto the ground. Standing beneath the towering metal structures, they felt tiny, as if they had stepped into the realm of gods. Caliban pointed at the massive cathedral-like building at the center. "That's where I live. If you want food, go inside." Then he gestured at the largest building, a fortress of steel, lined with pipes, gears, and conveyor belts. "That's my war factory." He turned to face them, his expression unreadable. "Do not go in there." The warning was absolute. "That place doesn't play nice. You fall in the wrong spot, and the machines will grind you into paste before I can say, Oops, understand? They nodded quickly. Satisfied, he turned away, heading toward the factory's main doors. Wait, one of them blurted out. Why do you need a war factory? Caliban paused. For a moment, the only sound was the humming of engines and the distant clanking of metal. Because war is coming, he said finally, and this world doesn't even know it yet. Inside the cathedral, the contrast was shocking. Outside, the factory was cold, mechanical, and efficient. But inside, it was a mess. Gears, tools, scrap metal, half-finished contraptions cluttered every surface. The air smelled of oil and burnt circuits. The women cautiously stepped inside. Men are the same across worlds, one of them muttered, eyeing the organized chaos. Caliban set down a crate on the table, then casually tossed each of them a bright-colored can. Drink! The women examined the strange objects in confusion. What is this? Soda? They hesitated. Observe, Caliban said, popping the tab on his own can. A sharp hiss escaped, followed by a faint fizzing sound. He tilted his head back and downed the drink in seconds, then crushed the can against his forehead before tossing it into a pile of others. The women shared uncertain looks before following suit. One of them squealed in delight at the sugary rush and immediately chugged the whole thing. Another took cautious sips, clearly unfamiliar with carbonation. The elf, however, stared at the can like she had just been handed a magical artifact. Caliban watched them with amusement, then leaned back in his chair. "All right, your turn," he said. "Start talking." They hesitated. "You're not from here," one of them finally said. "Nope. You were summoned?" Caliban clicked his tongue. "That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?" He sighed. "I didn't wake up here by choice. One second I was home. The next, boom, dropped into this medieval mess. House and everything." The women exchanged glances. Then, "Why you?" Caliban's expression darkened. "Because something's coming. And whatever it is, this world ain't ready." The room fell silent. For the first time since meeting him, they felt fear. Not of Caliban, but of what he knew. Part 4. The Power of Machines. Caliban stood, stretching before walking to a metal closet. He pulled out a sleek, deadly-looking firearm, its surface polished midnight blue. "What is that?" "This," he said, holding up the weapon, "is Jessica." They stared at him. "You named it?" "Damn right I did," he smirked. "A gun is a freedom delivery mechanism. You got magic? I got this. Think of it as a fireball spell, but with bullets, and a whole lot harder to dodge." He set the rifle down and rolled up his sleeve, revealing a cybernetic arm. With a mechanical whir, a hidden blade snapped out, gleaming under the workshop lights. The women flinched. "You did this to yourself?" Caliban retracted the blade and smirked. "A man's gotta adapt." Silence stretched between them. Then one of them cautiously raised a hand. "What do you plan to do?" Caliban's smirk disappeared. "Mom, I plan to win." A sudden gust of wind rattled the building. The women turned, and their eyes widened in horror. Standing just outside was a massive red-scaled beast, an elder dragon, its eyes locked onto them. It was twice the size of Caliban's house, its body covered in mithril-touched scales, polished and gleaming. Its wings stretched wide, catching the wind as it lowered its head. Caliban didn't even flinch. "You're early, Atus," he said casually. The dragon let out a low, rumbling chuckle. "I do not work for free." The creature's deep voice vibrated through the air. "An extra serving of that cake thing you make, and I shall fly them home." Caliban smirked. "That's the spirit." The women, still frozen in fear, barely reacted as Caliban nudged them toward the dragon. "Let's go, ladies. You've overstayed your welcome." The dragon lowered its wing, creating a makeshift ramp. One by one, the women hesitantly climbed on, their hands gripping the leather straps tightly. Caliban watched them as they settled in. "You sure you're good to fly?" he asked. The dragon snorted. "I am no fledgling." With that, it launched into the sky, the women screaming as they were lifted into the air. Caliban chuckled, then turned back toward the factory. There was work to do, because war was coming, and this world wasn't ready for him.